Well, I'm happy to report that the bench press rampage continues. Today I was able to hit 130 kilos for a couple sets of three. Last time I benched, which was 4 days ago, I was able to hit a bunch of doubles and then a single at the end, I think a total of 5 sets. Today I tried the third set to get a triple, couldn't, I got a double and I failed, and I kind of gave it my all on that last rep. And then I just backed down to 100 kilos and did my usual AMRAP set, which I got 15 today. So I think I'm in some sort of a groove with this bench press. It just continues to grow and grow and grow. Every 4 days I'm benching. Every 4 days there seems to be some sort of an improvement. My body feels freaking unbelievable, man. It's just simple as that. When your body feels amazing, it's so easy to just improve. It's just insane. Yesterday I did that low bar squat. This morning I woke up and feeling great in my hips. So there's something about wide, man. I've been saying it now for some time. Something about it. I don't know. It's like maybe it's just a case of variation. When you're constantly hitting the same damn angles of a joint over and over and over again, the body just gets pissed off and lets you know about it. That's kind of like one idea, one explanation for it. Another is simply that wide is better. When you think about it, when you're in a wide stance, the angles are less acute. You know, when you're in a narrow stance squat, the range of motion is very, very deep. Very, very deep. Same like with the bench press, when you got a narrower grip, your humerus bone or your upper arm bone gets below your chest, basically. But when you're doing a wide, you know, the humerus bone, like you see the experts like at the top competitions, you know, some of their freaking forearms, they don't even like break parallel with the floor. You know what I mean? Like it's just they've optimized all the physics involved in the lift, and they're able to perform amazingly. So maybe it's just a case of that you're using less range of motion, and you know, that particular deep acute angle involved in some of these movements is what actually hurts us. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards an explanation of its variation. It's something that you haven't brought up, and it's kind of like the low-hanging fruit. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just very easy to improve something that is far less superior than some of your strengths. And so when you go to a 120 kilos squat, wide stance, low bar, you know, I mean, as soon as you unrack that thing, you're like, this is a working weight, this is a thing for me. But then you start squatting and you see some of the difficulties they're experiencing through these, you know, points in the lift. You know, I get to kind of the parallel and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of uncomfortable in that position. My hips are kind of like screaming right now. Even though the rest of the system is like, this is a joke. You know, I deadlifted 270 the other day. So my rectors and like large part of my body is just, you know, this is, a walk. This is nothing. But there's a portion of my body which is not able to tolerate that. So, you know, it's kind of like that. You know, it's almost like a deload if you think about it. You know, it's a deload in many respects for most of the body that's used to handling maximum weights, you know, much double the weights, you know, in some other lifts. In that particular position, there is a weakness in the team of muscles. And so that's kind of just the addressing of that. And so wide for me has been notoriously very, very weak, like very, very weak. And in fact, like I was noticing as I was going along, you know, I kind of wanted to, you know, narrow my grip further and further. And then it got to a point where, you know, I was doing bench press, and I'm like, damn, man, like my shoulders are rising right at the bottom. Like it's almost I'm getting some sort of like shoulder rounding at the bottom of the bench press. I'm like, well, Jesus Christ, man, is this going to continue until my hands are touching? You know, and so to go the other way, force those adaptations with a wider stance, just challenges the body in a way where it's kind of like, okay, let's address whatever is responsible for not being happy wide. And same with the squats. I remember like I was getting to a point where I was getting more narrow, and it seemed around there that like, you know, there was another little, you know, common theme that, you know, there was a point where I was getting so narrow and I was noticing more and more hip pain. So now that I'm getting more and more comfortable wide, the hips are feeling better and better and better. It's almost like I'm just adding more strength in my range of motion. Like there's more range of my strength. It's kind of like in cars, like with the turbo cars, there's like a very narrow band of performance where the power is being produced on the in the revolutions of the engine. So you can have these street cars that are tuned, and it's like the turbo starts to spin like at 6,000 RPM, and it goes from 6 to 9,000 RPM. Or whatever. It's like sudden rush of power production in that range. But like from 1 to 6, 1 to 5, there's like basically nothing. This is just completely not in the revolutions where it makes power. It's just completely limp at that point. But when you're building cars to performance, to race around the racetrack, you actually want a bit of a larger area under the curve. If you know anything about maths, you want more area under that curve because that kind of gives you more accessibility to power. You're not just operating for just a split second of power. You need more range. You need more more area under the curve. And so that's kind of what this is reminding me. I was getting so good in a very, very small range, which is narrow, and anything beyond that, I would fall off. The strength would quickly fall off. So like with this wide grip and wide stance training, I'm just adding more area under the curve, which I can perform in. And I think overall that is a very beneficial thing for you and in a freaking car, right? It just becomes more usable. And in the case of the body becomes more resilient and more happy to prevent injuries. If you're good at wide and good at narrow, all of a sudden there's a balance about you. There's a sense that the entire hip joint is strong. It's not just one side of the hip joint is strong. So if we think about narrow stance, deep squats, what is going on there? Like what is happening there? Well, there's a few things going on. And, when you're narrow, your knees generally want to fall out because they can't fall in anymore. Your feet are just so close. So when you're going to a squat, there's no point. There's like no reason for your abductors to fire or your side glutes to fire. There's just no reason. The knees are already falling out naturally. And so the side glutes completely fall asleep. The adductors do get a bit of work for like that hip extension torque right at the bottom of the squat. Okay, they get involved a little bit. But like the side glute is completely not even in the mix. When you go wide, sure, all of the pushing muscles still need to be involved, but now the knees want to fall in because you've got a wider stance. There's room for the knees to fall in. And the way the physics work, the knees want to fall in. So now all of a sudden your side glutes are getting turned on with your main glutes, your glute max and all that stuff. So all of a sudden there is a component of side glutes. Oh, look at that. Your adductors have a larger range of motion. They're more open. So they're getting kicked in more. And the hip flexors start to kick in more because you're kind of opening up the hip joint and there's just more room for everything. And so all of a sudden you're firing much more muscles than before. So for me, that's been very, very weak, and I've had to, iron this out. I'm in the process of that. The thing with the narrow stance squats that I've been kind of chasing for such a long time is that narrow stance squats carry over very, very well to deadlifts, especially conventional deadlifts, because like the movement pattern is very similar. The stance is very similar, and you end up essentially practicing your deadlift every time you squat when you're going narrow. So this is something that, I've kind of wondered over the years, how come some people have squats and deadlifts that are very similar numbers and my squats and deadlifts are so freaking wide apart? And I think one explanation is that I'm just good in narrow, and narrow stance squats are very, very difficult to perform in terms of maximum weight. So it's just the leverage is against you. Like you've got this bar on your back, which is completely trying to fold you over. Whereas when the bar is in your hands in a deadlift, you can position yourself, you can engage the lats, you can put that bar a lot closer to that fulcrum, to that base of support, that midline, than you can with the high bar, at least the way I squat. But when you're going wide stance squat and you're going low bar, now that bar is getting really, really close to that midline. In fact, it might be already perfectly at midline. And all of a sudden, the leverages and the physics start to help you. You're not going that deep. That's an advantage. The bar is really close to that midline. That's an advantage. And you're kind of stacked appropriately against that external force. And it just makes sense. And so I'll continue to, hit that wide stance and wide grip. And so far, so good, man. I'm feeling great. Appreciate you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.